Okay, great. So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this Houdini Tools webinar. I'm Jess Rowley. I'm the Events and Program Manager here for Global Game Jam. I'm joined today with Deb Isaac, who is the Community Mentor at Side Effects. She has over a decade of experience teaching Houdini, and she is super excited to share her enthusiasm with this software and focuses on encouraging artists to make amazing work with it. Her community building efforts include co-organizing LAHUG, which is the Los Angeles Houdini user group, and running Houdini Battle. Additionally, she is an adjunct professor at USC Cinematic Arts, Expanded Animation, and is the founder of Houdini School. Thank you so much for joining us today, Deb. I really appreciate it.
So much for having me, Jess.
Yeah.
And yeah, a lot of Houdini things there. I love this software so much, and I hope that, by the end of this, you guys will feel it too and get excited about it. So I have a little presentation that we're going to start with. So we'll do that first. Okay, so yes, I am the community mentor at Side Effects, the makers of Houdini, which is a procedural content creation software. And today we're going to be talking about how Houdini is used in games, and I'm also going to do a workshop with you guys. And first, let's all look at the reel together, the games reel. Here's a list of the studios that are presented in this reel. Okay, here we go. And here's a sampling of some of the big game studios using Houdini. And Houdini is used in the game pipeline.
Prendre des contacts si vous êtes que 6.
Houdini is used in the game pipeline in so many ways, and we're going to talk about that. But what is the big deal, right? Like, why do we care about using Houdini? Why is it important? It's the flexibility and the power, right? So Houdini is node-based, and we're going to demonstrate that. It's also non-destructive. So when you create something in Houdini, you have access to everything you've made, and you can alter things at any step of the way. Think about it like creating systems. And we're going to create a system, and you package those systems, and then you can import them into your game engine. So let's look at how, if you go to the Side Effects website, you can see, like, in the industries, if you go to game development, as you can see, there's many industries that use Houdini, but in the game development, I encourage you guys to go to the website, check it out, look at all the other reels from previous years. So much great work. You can also see interviews from studios. And here are some learning materials. So after this workshop, you guys can actually learn about these projects and download the assets. So Project Pegasus, it's an open world 3D environment. Now this is done in Unreal, and I'm not sure how many of you guys are Unity, Unreal, or other game engines. Houdini's used in Unity and in Unreal. Project Titan is also an Unreal project, and it has this whole world, and you guys can download it and play with it. World building is a big deal, right? So you can make terrains and you can make cities. The terrain generation is very powerful in Houdini, and some people, that's their entire job, is making terrains in Houdini in game studios. And there's something called Side Effects Labs. I've been talking about this, and they are these tools that artists can use that were initially developed for game artists, but everyone is using them because they're extremely handy tools. Real-time effects. So explosions, this is what Houdini's known for: destruction, fire, explosions. Now, real-time effects in games is, how do we get those, those types of like high-end effects into games? You use what you guys know already about: flipbook textures, flow maps, vertex animation textures, all those great techniques you guys use in games. Houdini Engine is plugins that go into Unreal and Unity. And basically, you can take Houdini digital assets and put them right into your game engine. So we'll talk about that too. So here's where you would download those. Houdini is used extensively in cinematics in games. All the great Blizzard cinematics, that's all Houdini. These are some different licensing types. But yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to share from the website. Okay. Okay, so now it's time to start learning, and then we'll come back to this presentation after our demo. And we did ask everyone if they had any licensing issues. So now would be the time if anybody had any problems installing Houdini, or do most of you guys at least have it and can run? So let's see here. Okay, so I have my Houdini, just a blank, fresh screen, and I just want to get, now this is going to be totally interactive, so you guys don't be afraid to speak up. Do most people have Houdini up right now and can follow along?
Yeah, if anyone is having any issues with this part of the process, please just let us know now so we can assist.
Yeah.
So you can better follow along.
So Rin, you have this, you have an issue with your first email?
Yeah, it says it can't verify it. It's because it's through like a Microsoft and not like Gmail.
Oh yeah. So because Microsoft has an account with Side Effects, you can't use those emails. Sorry. Yeah. They have to be like personal emails. It's not something we encounter that often with this, but unfortunately we don't have time to go through that process. So
Okay.
yeah. But sorry about that. But hopefully you can watch, and you can always talk to me afterwards, and I can help you as well. But let's get started. Okay, so when you launch Houdini, you're gonna have these 3 panes right here. And why don't I get something in my scene view so this can all make more sense? Okay. So if you hit Control, click and this shelf up here, and click on this sphere, a sphere will appear in the center of your world space, okay? And to navigate, what you're going to do is you're going to hold down the middle space button, and with the left mouse button, you're going to tumble. With the middle button, you're going to pan. And with the right one, you're going to zoom. Okay, so hopefully everyone has a 3-button mouse, but left is tumble, middle is pan, and right is zoom. Okay, now you see that we have 3 panes right here. This is the scene view that we're in here. Now over here are your parameters. And down here, this is where we're going to make our networks. Okay, so network view, parameters, and scene view right here. So in Houdini, it's a little different. So I don't know if everyone is familiar with like Blender or 3D Max or Maya or a different 3D program, but one thing that's a little bit different or unique is this concept of geometry objects. So you guys see this word objects right here where my mouse is, right? So if I select this node and I go inside, okay, so I just double click, I go inside. Now I see this word called geometry. And here is where we have access to the sphere and all of its components. So I'm going to go up again, and you see where it says OBJ here. So I just click that to go up, and I'm back into my objects. Now, for those of you that like shortcuts, I can say I to go in, U to go up. I can double click inside. I can click this to go up. I can say I to go in, U to go up. Okay, so it's like this, we can start to get familiar with going in and coming out of these object nodes, these object containers. Okay, so we have our sphere, and now what I want to do is talk about what's called flags. So you see how this blue little guy here is highlighted. Okay. What I want everyone to do, and please let me know if you have questions, is I want to introduce you to the tab menu. So we're going to hit tab. And I'm going to say MOU for mountain, right here. So I click on that mountain, and I click here, and then I'm going to connect and connect. And then I'm going to hit the display flag of this mountain node. So let me do that again. Okay, so what I just did is I made our first network. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. Okay, so I have my sphere. I'm going to hit tab. I'm just going to type the first couple letters of mountain. Click, click, and then the output of the sphere goes into the input of the mountain. Now notice I don't see anything happen until I click on the display flag of the mountain. So when you first start using Houdini, you're gonna be like, I don't see anything happen. What's going on? My answer is gonna be, where is your display flag? Okay, so that's the very end flag here. Now, the other flags that are important are the template flag. So if I template the sphere, I can still see it. You see that? I can still see my sphere. I can also, turn off this grid display. Do you see where my mouse is? That grid? So you can see what I mean a little more. And so I have my sphere templated while my mountain is displayed, okay? So that's the template flag. The other one that's important is the bypass. Okay, so I might bypass this node here, and then what happens is it gets ignored and all we see is the sphere. See that? Okay, so I can unbypass that. You also notice that you have this ring of icons. And that's in case, you're all zoomed out and you still want to reach your flags, you can still use that ring. Okay? But it's the same thing as actually clicking on these guys here, okay? So those are the main flags I just want to talk about today. The other nice handy shortcut is if you hold down Y on your keyboard, you'll turn into a scissors, and then I can slash the wire just like that, okay? Hold down Y and slash like that. I'm hearing a little background noise, Jess. Maybe you can mute everyone, and then if someone wants to unmute, they can mute themselves. That'd be great. Awesome. Perfect. And with that, any questions so far? Just unmute yourself if you want to talk. Or you can type. I know I'm going a little fast. Everyone okay? Okay. Now we'll kind of get into this lesson now. However, just some organizational stuff. You can always, they're up here are some organizational icons. So I can select my nodes and hit this color palette here. So I can select my nodes, I can change them, change all their colors, okay? I can select the one next to it, which is node shape. I can change my node shapes. It's kind of fun. I can select my nodes and I can put a box around and give it a title and also color it. And I can make sticky notes. So when you're learning, it's nice to be able to color code and take notes. So I encourage you guys to have some fun with that. Okay. Okay. So let me bring those guys back. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to go over like a couple little lessons. And the first one is one that we already started here, and it's how to make a rock, okay, which is kind of like a nice standard thing you might do when you're making a game. Maybe you want to make some rocks. Okay, so we have our sphere, and let's look up here. If you notice, the type is a polygon mesh and it's quads. And quads have poles, okay? So if I don't want those poles, I can change it to just polygon, and that's just triangles, and there's no poles at the top or the bottom. I can also go ahead and increase my frequency, which increases the resolution. if I just mouse over any of these parameters and middle click, I will get what's called the value ladder. The value ladder, you just slide your mouse, the middle mouse, you just slide it to the right and the left to change those values. Now, up and down is the increment. Right and left is the amount, okay? Okay, so we can just, really push the resolution of this guy. And that way, when you see the sphere, when you see the mountain, now we get something a little more interesting, right? Okay, so let's talk about this mountain. Now, just so you know, this is actually called attribute noise. Attribute noise. The preset is called mountain. So don't worry too much about that. But if you wanted to also find it, attribute noise is also right here. And the preset is mountain, and what it's doing is it's changing our point positions. So it's overriding our P positions, our X, Y, and Z. And we put this attribute, it has this attribute P right here, okay? Now, don't worry too much about that kind of stuff. We can just work with the preset and start to play with your amplitude. So this is going to be how much of the noise you want to apply. So that's your noise amplitude. You also have the noise type, and you have so many noise types. So I want everyone to kind of explore and play with the different noise types you have available to you. And Perlin, I believe, is or simplex is the default. Worley is actually quite a cool noise. And we'll end up with this one. It's also pretty good for, like, stylization. Okay, now these are cellular noises. So Worley is a cellular noise. Okay, so one of the things that we're going to do, so we can take the amplitude down, and we can take the element size. So the element size affects the noise quite a bit, right? So this is not amplitude, this is frequency. So I wonder if I can annotate. So frequency is just, like if you think about a sine wave, it's like this is a high frequency and this is a low frequency, right? So when we think about element size, that's what we're referring to. Cool. So let's get a pretty low frequency. That's a little confusing because it's like we're making a higher number, but it is a low frequency. Okay. Now, the neat thing is that if you think about this offset right here, right? So this is shifting our noise. This is the key to getting different rocks, okay? Now, after this mountain, we can add another mountain. So you guys can start to think about layering these noises. So instead of zero centered on the second mountain, you want to make sure it's positive so that it doesn't go inward. And you can do another whirly or a different noise altogether. And like we talked about before, you can go anywhere up this chain and make changes. So you can change the first noise and the second noise will still apply. If you see where my mouse is, we can also go to smooth shaded. If you just want to see without the wireframe on top, you're welcome to switch it from wire shaded to smooth shaded so you can see the result. The other thing I can do is hit with my mouse here is hit D for display, background, dark. Okay. And if you hit animation on either of these guys, this is another way to get all these different rocks, okay, that you can export. Okay. So the next thing is, let's say you want to poly reduce, because that's a common thing that you might want to do in games. So we can say poly reduce. And you can do it by percentage. So you can see what's happening here. You can also do output polygon count. So if you already know you only want 1,000 polygons. So you can, and it'll tell you it reduced it to almost 5% right here. Now, there is an auto UV. Now this is where the labs comes in. So this is a labs tool. And you guys can do auto UV and that will UV your rock. You can even see your UV. So if you go, instead of from here, instead of perspective view, you can go to UV and see how they're laid out. Okay, you go back to perspective view. The other kind of typical thing you guys might want is normals. So we add some normals and I'll turn off the display of my UVs. And you can kind of see, like, if we want to have hard or soft normals, you can adjust your cusp angle by this slider right here. So I'll go back to smooth shaded. So we have hard, cusp angles, and then soft ones right here. Yeah. Great. There's many ways you can export from Houdini. There is an FBX. Now you have Indie. So Indie allows you to do this. And there's a ROP FBX output. And you can render a frame range. You can render the current frame and then save to disk. what this means here, this $hip, means this FBX is going to be saved wherever my hip file is saved. Okay, so that's where the FBX is going to land. And for other game engines, make sure to put convert units because Houdini's in meters, and I believe all the other ones are centimeters. So convert your units. So this would be how to do FBX. There's also just, if you want to do OBJs, you can simply put a file and you can save it anywhere you want, but you literally just type OBJ. You can type any file extension here and Houdini will understand, and make sure you say write files. And it literally it'll just write it. So right now it's writing over, but if I say rock, $ uppercase F, put another dot there. And then as I click here, it's this $F is looking at my timeline and it's giving me rock 38, rock 44, rock 27. Okay. And then there's also alembic. There's all kinds of, so alembic, FBX, OBJ, there's many ways to get this data outside of Houdini. Any questions on this? Is anyone following along? Hopefully. Oh, good. Okay. What is the purpose of a normal node? So normals are important for shading, but they're also in games. They're a way to cheat how to make objects look soft when there's very little geometry. UV is also very important for texturing. So when you do any kind of texturing in 3D, you have UVs that tell the texture how to wrap or how to wrap and conform. So imagine a globe of the earth and you have that, texture of the earth. The UVs tell it, how do I distort properly to make it look normal to be a globe? Does that make sense, Ren and Carlos? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. So UVs and normals are those are the kind of, in the future, you probably won't ever even look at these, how things are going with the future. They're kind of housekeeping things, but we do need to worry about that as 3D artists. We do have to take care of our geometry. So let me know if there's any more questions. We're going to move on. Aha, so this is a very Houdini thing, the $. Okay. So I middle click here and Ollie, I want you to take a look at what just happened. See how that says 14? So now I'm going to click over here. See how it says 50? This in Houdini, when you see that $, and the $F. Now, this is a global variable that Houdini will understand. Doesn't matter where you put it. It'll always understand that $F means the current frame. Retrieve that current frame. I'm on frame 50. Okay, so it's going to retrieve, it's going to write out rock 50. Okay, it's going to write out rock 73. It's going to write out rock 14, and it's just going to give me all of these different rocks that have unique names. Okay, they have unique names. Okay, That's what the $ means. And we can take notes. $F equals current frame. Okay. Now we're going to talk about something. We're going to kind of level up a pinch. I'm not going to really talk about attributes, but for any of those of you that are going to continue with Houdini, you will be exploring attributes. It is a fundamental thing about Houdini. So everyone hit tab and type sphere, sphere polygons. Okay, so again, we put our display flag right over here. And let's do the same thing where we change it to polygon. I'm going to use my value ladder to just bring up all this, bring up maybe right about here, 12. Okay. I'm going to do a poly extrude. It's kind of a standard operation in 3D. We extrude. You know, we can extrude the thing as a whole, or we can do individual elements. Okay, so if you do individual elements, the triangles will all extrude out, you know, separately, and you have, you know, you have your inset as well if you want to play with that too. Okay. Now something that's neat. So if we say again, you can do another attribute noise. But this time we'll say attribute noise float. So tab, you can even type float. You could say attribute noise float. Now, what is float? Well, think about what a vector is. Vector is like you would think velocity is a vector, right? Normals are a vector. X, Y, Z. Point position, those are vectors. Colors are vectors, R, G, B. But a float is one value. And we can call this anything. So I'm going to type noise right here. So we're creating a custom attribute called noise. And we've got some noise. Now we don't see it quite yet. Let's put our display flag on that. And we can visualize our noise by clicking on this icon right here. You can visualize your noise. You can change. Now you can see what happens simply with color. You know, it's like a weather map, right? And you know, you can animate it. You want to animate your noise. See? Okay. So notice how we put that before our poly extrude here. Okay, so let's go back to this poly extrude. We can go to local control, and the distance scale, we can just type our new noise attribute that we made. And what we should see, ha ha ha, okay, so my bad. Here we go, it works now. So this is really important. I had it on the set onto the wrong geometry component. It was set to point, but it needs to be on the primitive because the poly extrude is acting it's acting on the primitive. Okay, so now check this out. How cool is that? And one, whether it's add or set it won't make a difference in this case. But if we start to make a bunch of these, then what the add will do is, like we saw in the rock, it's just going to add on top. So this guy, remember we had two of these. So this one adds on top of this one. If I had it to set, it would replace it. So that's what the add is doing. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Okay, so now we can control, so if you want like a sci-fi theme, you could control that by, this is another way to use noise. There's so many ways. Oh, great. Thank you, Tilo. Okay, so that's that demo. And now we're going to do one last demo, and then we'll go, and then, we'll move on. Okay, here we go. Last demo. There is some test geometry. So if I say pig, if you say test, you're welcome to use anything. There's all this test geometry here, and you can use any of these test geometries. And we're just going to use this, but we could use anything. We could use a grid. And what I'm going to do is kind of go back and forth to show you that Houdini adapts to whatever source you have. Okay, so I have my pig head. I'm going to turn off this shader and turn off my UV display. Okay. Now, one of the most amazing nodes in Houdini, in my opinion, is the copy to points. Copy to points. So awesome. Okay. So I'm going to say tab, and I'm going to hit sphere again. Copy to points does what it says. It copies to points. If I mouse over here, it says points to copy to. If I mouse over here, it says geometry to copy. So I want to copy my spheres onto my pig head. Boom. Now, they're too big, but this is this idea, and I can take down the scale of my spheres. So you can see what's going on is that it's copying a sphere to every point on my pig. And I can do the same thing for the grid. This time I can get my scale back to somewhat normal. Yeah, okay. So I can copy spheres onto this grid, and I can also, I'll do an attribute adjust color. Why not? I'll just plug that right in here and make that random. Okay, so super fun node, you guys, and I use it a lot. So let's say you wanted to scatter rocks in a terrain. There is a scatter tool. It's called scatter and align. Okay, so I'm going to put that here. And what it does is it scatters points. It does a bunch of things for you, but it scatters points. And we can say coverage. We can increase the coverage to 100%. And if you start to take down the scale here, not here, but in the actual scatter node, it'll just automatically add more points, and therefore you don't have to worry about intersections. It takes care of that for you. See? You can also say, hey, I want my minimum to be quite small and my maximum to be like over here. And then you can get like random scaling as well. See that? And like I've been saying before, you can at any time change things upstream. So I can like, instead put my pig head in there. Look at that. Now notice how they're all facing the same way. The scatter and align has this great feature where you can randomly rotate as well. So now all my pigs are facing random directions. This is very useful. Okay, so, and also we can make a quick terrain. I mean, you wouldn't do terrains this way, but we will today. I'm just gonna put this on my grid, and you can alter that a little bit so we can see that as well. Okay. The last part of this workshop is I wanted to talk about digital assets because this is how we're going to get assets from Houdini into your game engine. So let's say that you wanted to, and you could have 2 inputs, you could have 1 input, but the way to make game assets, digital assets, is you select the nodes you want to package up. Okay, so let's say I want to package up these guys right here. I select them and I go to assets and I go new digital asset from selection. And it makes this package for me. Hold on, where did my thing go? 1 second. There, it's hiding. Sorry, Mac. Mac always gets me. Okay. There we go. Okay, so I can call it anything I want. And it's going to be saved right here in your preferences. And you can say create. And then it brings up this dialog, right? And if you look here in the parameters, so now you just made it your own custom tool. If you look here, there's nothing here. But if you go inside, you can see, okay, this is what's inside, right? If I click parameters, this is empty. So what I can do is I can say, okay, what are the things that I might want access to in my game engine? So I can say, okay, I might want my minimum radius, my maximum radius, and my uniform scale of the thing, the rocks, or whatever I'm trying to scatter, okay? So I can say apply. And then look, now I have my parameters right there. And I can then say accept. And I now have made my digital asset. Okay. And the last step is going to be match current definition. Now this locks our digital asset. And at this point, you can now put this into your game engine, just like this. Okay. And that is the end of my presentation, like demonstration in Houdini. Now we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. Any questions about anything? No questions? Awesome. Thanks, Francisco. Awesome. Thanks, Carlos. Okay, cool. Let's get back to talking about these digital assets. Okay. So Houdini Engine is the plugin that allows you to take that digital asset and put it into your game engine. So when you have your Houdini launcher, I think most of you guys use this to install Houdini. You go to where it says Engine Plugins, and this is where you install the plugins for Unity or Unreal. And let's just watch this together.
Houdini Engine for Unity is a plugin that brings the procedural power of Houdini to the Unity game editor. Houdini lets you create digital assets that are driven by node networks that allow you to generate unique results each time you use them. Houdini Engine acts as a conduit for the deployment of procedural assets into Unity. This is not just importing static geometry, because as the assets are loaded in the editor, they act more like tools. Artists and level designers can use these tools as if they are part of the Unity experience and don't need to know anything about Houdini. Assets can be manipulated using parameters or interactively in the viewport, then Houdini cooks the nodes under the hood to deliver the results back to Unity. Whether you are using Unity for game or XR development, virtual production, or design visualization, these procedural assets can help you work faster and more efficiently. Assets can be designed to generate everything you need, such as good topology for your models, UVs for your textures, and even lower res collision geometry. It is important to note that these assets are procedural in the game editor, but are not part of the runtime experience. They get baked out, which means they should be designed to output game-friendly and instant geometry. The assets you see here are from the starter kit available on sideeffects.com, which will allow you to explore Houdini Engine for Unity for yourself. There are assets for building trees, foliage, edge damage, platforms, roads, and terrain. You can even generate a whole level using a Photoshop sketch to drive the placement of elements, input the PSD file, and then use the parameters to set min and max building heights. And the best part is that the Houdini Engine for Unity plugin is free for both indie and commercial studios. Houdini Indie can be used to build assets, then you can distribute these assets to up to 3 level designers working in Unity. Commercial studios can access up to 10 licenses online or talk to an account manager to add as many free licenses as you need. A small team of technical artists can use Houdini Core or Houdini Effects to make custom assets that support wide deployment within your project. Come and experience Houdini Engine for Unity for yourself. Visit sideeffects.com/unity, where you can learn how to download and install the plugin and access the starter kit assets seen in this video. Houdini Engine for Unity.
So hopefully you guys understood that what I just made for you guys and what you guys can make, that's what he's talking about, right? All those sliders in Unity are the same sliders that I just showed you how to expose in Houdini. So that's how they work together. It's the same in Unreal, what you just saw for Unity. I don't know how many of you guys are Unity or Unreal here today. You're welcome to put that in the chat. There are starter kits that are available for you guys. So let me put this in the chat right now. Okay, so if you guys click on this in the chat right now, you can use it for either Unity or Unreal. And there's a starter kit. There's both starter kit assets, so you can use the assets right away. And there's tutorials on how those assets are made. So it's a great way to learn. Yeah, so definitely learn the starter kits. And the Game Jam Basics is a tutorial that's similar to what I just showed you guys, so you can always revisit that. And anything by Simon is going to be great. Here are different license types. I gave you guys Houdini Indie, and Houdini Indie is really great. Super affordable, and it's great for like indie games, small groups. You guys are just making something. Houdini Apprentice is free, but you can't really export FBX. So it's not great for games, but you can learn the software. Here are some great people. Now, I really just Google everything by Simon. He's great. Adrian might have taken his stuff off recently because of AI. But if you can find anything by Adrian, he's great. Julian's amazing, and so is Anastasia. So if you guys want to take a little screen grab of that for a sec. You're also welcome to the Side Effects Discord. This is a closed community, but every time I give a workshop to a game jam, I'm allowed to invite you guys. So you can also take a screen grab of this. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed my my demo, and we do have time for questions. So